Hi, my name is Ben Mulda, and this is my cousin-in-law, Lee Owens. He was born in Grand Rapids on 6/24/88, and he served in the U.S. Army on Operation Iraqi Freedom. His highest rank achieved was E4. This interview is being conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress, and it is being conducted on May 27th, 2021 in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And tell me a little bit about your family.
Yeah, so I was raised by my father and mother, and I had two sisters. One sister was 2 years older than I, and then my younger sister was 5 years younger than me. My father did go into the military shortly after high school. He went into the active military, and he was in it for about 5 or 6 years. And then after that, he went into the Army National Guard here in Michigan. So I did get to experience the military life, have that military background. And my mother, she was a stay-at-home mom. So her main focus was just raising us kids. Once my father joined the Army National Guard, he, on the side, decided to go into the finance industry. He worked with a company, a local company here in town, and then after he was with the company for a little while, he decided to go off on his own and start his own business as a financial advisor.
And did your father influence you at all to join the Army?
Yeah, I would say my father had a huge role on it. Not only did my father join the military, my grandfather was also in the military. He's a Vietnam vet, and he did 30 plus years in the U.S. Army. So seeing my grandfather be in the military and then my father join the military, ever since I was a kid, that was something I was like, that's something I want to do as well. Felt like it was really honorable, and got to see a lot of the experience that my grandfather and my father both got to experience with being in the military. So it definitely played a huge role on me joining the military.
What were you doing before you joined the military?
So before the military, I was actually in high school. So I joined the military when I was 18. So I didn't do much. I was just finishing up high school. And then right after graduation that summer, I decided to swear in. And yeah.
And why was the reason you chose this specific branch of service?
Yeah, I never really put much thought into it. I mean, my grandpa was in the U.S. Army. My dad was in the U.S. Army. So I think kind of the first thought was just wanting to go join the Army. I think one of my thoughts is that they had a lot of specialized schools, more so than some other branches. So I was like, hey, I'll go in the Army. Hopefully I can get into some of the specialized schools. So that's kind of the reason I chose that route.
Or some other reasons that you decided to join the Army?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it was, one, I knew it would create a lot of good experience. Hopefully it would be more applicable if I ever was not to stay in the military. Help out with leadership. And just thought it would maybe, help me grow to be a better man.
How were your early days of training camp?
Yeah, so a little while ago, kind of how I remember it being is, so let's see, I signed up when I was 18 and went to basic training. So it was in Fort Benning, Georgia. And I remember being pretty nervous, yet kind of excited getting on the bus to head to Georgia. But yeah, it was, I don't know if it's exactly what I expected. I knew it was going to be tough. I knew I was going to be yelled at a lot. But I actually kind of enjoyed basic training. I think I liked the challenge. I'm really, really tired going through all the training, but I felt like it was really a rewarding experience. But yeah, after basic training, once your graduation happened, then you go to advanced individual training. And I thought the advanced individual training was really good. Got to go through a lot more of like leadership roles, and actually in the specialized training, which I was going to an engineer unit, so I got to learn how to do different types of buildings, try to at least learn a trade that hopefully I could carry over into the civilian life. So I definitely enjoyed that advanced individual training course that I got to go to. So yeah.
What was it like adapting to that?
Yeah, so being from a military family, I kind of had an idea of what to expect. It was kind of nice having the father, be in the military. I kind of got to go and see already kind of what to expect on things. So I don't know if it was necessarily hard to adapt. I know for sure it was the routines. I wasn't necessarily used to like a structured routine to have every single day. So that was kind of a hard thing for me to adapt to at first, being that structured. But yeah, as far as the mental toughness and stuff like that, I don't feel like that was too difficult for me. I kind of liked it actually a little bit. But it's kind of as far as like adapting to like the discipline. I wouldn't say I was not necessarily a very disciplined person, but the military caused me to be a lot more disciplined than I had to be, back in my home life. So, it took a little while taking orders from someone, telling you exactly what you have to do, when you have to do it. Really not making any decision for yourself. You're being told exactly what you have to do. So that took a little bit of adjusting to. But you find out things are a lot easier if you just listen and do what you're told. So, so that's kind of how it went for as far as adapting to it.
Did you make any lifelong friends in your training camp?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, a lot of the guys that I went to basic with weren't even going to the unit that I was in, but definitely met some really good guys, became really close to them because you're in this environment where it's high stress and you just create this bonding with certain guys. So definitely created some good friends in basic training. I haven't kept in touch with them as much, but definitely for quite a few years following, I kept in touch with them even though they're in different states, different units, some in even different countries. But yeah, you definitely get this sense of a bond that you create in training. So.
And where did you serve?
So as far as my unit was in Grayling, Michigan, so that's where my home unit was. But then I also did serve overseas in Iraq for Operation Iraqi Freedom. So that was really my only two places of service.
How was the trip there over to Iraq?
Over Iraq. Yeah, so it was kind of interesting, kind of a long process of getting there. So for as far as deploying, you have your pre-mob site you go to. So started out going to, we all went to Grayling, Michigan. Our whole unit got together. They had a ceremony for us leaving, and then we went to Fort McCoy, Wisconsin. And we spent about a month or so, I think it was about a month or so in Fort McCoy. And there's where you get a lot of your equipment, really just a lot of prep work for actually leaving country. So after being there for about a year, and we we also did some training there as well. But after Fort McCoy, we then we flew to Kuwait. And then once we got in Kuwait, we were there for about a month as well and got up to speed on training, learning about what we were going to be doing while we were in country, getting more equipment, getting used to the vehicles we'd be using. So just a lot more prep and getting ready for our mission that we're going to have in Iraq. And then from Kuwait, we actually then go on a military plane into Iraq. So initially going from the US over to Kuwait, it was actually on a civilian airline. So that was my first experience actually going on a military plane. And kind of a funny story on that actually is from Kuwait to Iraq, they cram us into this plane with all of our equipment, and all of us are kind of nervous, not knowing what to expect. But we weren't flying into like a hot zone or anything like that, so it wasn't anything too intense. But I believe it was Air Force that was flying it. As we were coming into Iraq, they actually did, I think, what they call a combat drop, so where they take a dive and kind of spiral. And come to find out, I think they kind of did it as practice / they kind of thought it was funny to see how us soldiers would react to doing a combat drop like that. So we had guys throwing up, guys freaking out, but we weren't getting attacked or anything. I was just doing it for training purposes. So yeah, we flew right into Baghdad. It was called Baghdad International Airport, and that's where pretty much everyone flies into initially going into Iraq. So that was kind of the experience getting to Iraq.
What emotions were running through your body at that time?
Yeah, I don't know if I was like too nervous at that point. It's just you don't know what to expect. I always think back to like my grandpa talks about Vietnam and about how his experience was going into country, and I don't know if I didn't really think it was gonna be quite like that. I knew we weren't gonna be going into like a active combat area, so I guess I wasn't like too nervous. I didn't really know what to expect, but at the same time, it's just all new. And yeah, just I guess it's more of the unknown. You don't know what to expect because it's all new experiences for me. So, yeah.
What type of action did you witness in Iraq?
Yeah, so a couple different types of attacks. I guess I got to experience. I got to go through, go throughout a lot of Iraq and go to a lot of different bases, a lot of joint stations. They call them JSSs. And really, pretty much on every base, we had incoming rounds coming in, mortar rounds coming in. I would say pretty much every base I was on, at least some night, we were getting hit by mortar rounds. And yeah, first time it happened was actually on in Baghdad on our home base. And I think that first experience of incoming rounds, you just really nervous. You don't know what to expect. The sirens are going off. You hear these guns going off trying to shoot down the mortars. And then we just got to get on our equipment and run out to a bunker. And that kind of dissipated over time because you're getting hit so much with mortar rounds that it kind of just becomes like, all right, incoming rounds are coming, alarms going off. It's not as big of a rush. So something you kind of adapted to, and it's kind of just like a norm over time. Especially when a lot of times they didn't even know where they were shooting. It was just incoming rounds coming in. So that was one area where I experienced, some action, I guess you would call it. At first, I was with an engine unit, so at first I was on the mission to go help rebuild certain bases throughout Iraq. But there was actually openings for something called Convoy Security Team, which was in charge of being in security detail for transporting troops and equipment from base to base. And they needed more guys for that, so I decided that's what I wanted to sign up for. So I joined the Convoy Security Team. I thought it'd be more fun than trying to go out and have to build and work on rebuilding up these bases. So it was a group of about, I think it was around 20 or 25 of us. And yeah, we just did convoys mostly at night, since a lot of times we were transporting huge equipment. But I was part of a gun truck. It was a medic truck, and I was the primary gunner. So there was a lot of times we were out on convoys, and there'd be either small arms fire, or there'd be IEDs, EFPs, different types of explosive devices and stuff like that. So we would get hit by those, but thankfully my convoy never had anybody get injured too much from any of those attempts to attack us. Yeah, so as far as seeing combat, there wasn't really anything that intense, I guess I would say. I mean, it's intense when you're getting hit by IEDs and small arms fires, and we even had RPGs that would fire at us on some of our convoys. But for our SOP was that if you get hit by an attack, that you just push through, set up a 360 and call QRF, and they're the ones that come out and actually take care of it. It wasn't really our mission to pursue the attackers. It was more so just get out of the area, make sure everyone's safe, set up the perimeter, and let QRF come in and actually pursue who was attacking us.
Do you still keep in touch with the guys that were in that?
Yeah, so I definitely do. So the nice thing about going to that combat security team, there was about 25 of us, and we got really close versus being with the main unit. I was with a small group of guys, and we did everything together. I mean, you really get to know each other. You're doing convoys all night long, and then you're trying to get some sleep during the day, and then just try to shoot the breeze with each other. And a lot of times there's not much to do because we're transporting troops from one base to the next base, and it's not our home base, so we have nowhere to sleep. So a lot of times we just sleep in our gun trucks and just kind of hang out, goof off. So I definitely created some really good relationships with those guys, and I still keep in touch with quite a few of them. We try to get together when we can. Doesn't seem to happen as much, but we definitely keep in touch, and every time we get back together, it's like we kind of just picked up where we left off before. just going through those experiences, through those intense situations, and having each other's backs, kind of made that relationship really grow and just connect well together.
How did you stay in touch with your family back home? If at all?
Yeah, so depending where we're at, so if we were like on a main base, so the nice thing about at least for Baghdad, they had a really big base there. It was called Camp Liberty, and they actually had access to internet. I had access to computer, and couldn't really do phone calls, but I guess because we had internet and computer, we could actually video call our family. So when I was on those bases, I was actually able to stay in contact, I'd say a decent amount with family, friends back home. Anytime I was out on missions and I was staying at smaller bases, it was definitely harder to stay in touch with them. I really didn't write any letters. The only time I stayed in contact is when I could actually get on the internet and send an email or a message or something like that. So, but it was pretty accessible as far as being able to reach, family members. And a lot of times we would get care packages too from my family, where they would send it to the main base. And then if I was out on missions for a month or so, when I come back, I would have all these care packages for my family. So that was nice.
Was it ever hard not being able to see your family for that long?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was definitely tough not seeing my parents. I mean, since we had that communication, it wasn't, horrible. The nice thing about me is I didn't have kids. I wasn't married. So I didn't really have to experience, like I saw a lot of other guys have to struggle with the fact of not seeing their kids, not seeing their spouse. For me, I don't feel like I struggled with it a ton. I mean, I definitely missed the home life, missed my family, but I felt like I created a family there that it wasn't necessarily that difficult for me.
Where were you when the war ended?
Where was I when the war ended? So I was there from 2009 to 2010. And I don't remember exactly when Operation Iraqi Freedom actually ended. So I know I was still in, because actually my unit was supposed to go into, well, I'm guessing maybe Operation Iraqi Freedom ended because actually my unit was going to go into Afghanistan. But I was, my term was almost up, so they actually couldn't make me go. So I was actually in the military still. I was in the Army National Guard, so still doing training and exercises and stuff. But because I was getting out, I didn't have to worry about deploying again. But so probably around the time the war ended, I was either just about getting out of the military, or I might have been out even.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what was it like coming home?
Yeah, so coming home was more of an adjustment. That was probably one of the toughest things for me, was just adjusting back to the civilian life. So with being the primary gunner and doing convoys nightly, being on edge, it was definitely more tough coming back home and just not being on on edge as much. So it was definitely hard for me to get back into even just being with friends, being with family. I was just way more edge. I think I was a little more short-tempered. It was even kind of helpful being overseas. It was very structured, so you have a very structured plan. Even though convoys are all different times, but you're very structured. And you come back home and it's like nothing's structured anymore. You have a lot more freedom, and even though you think you'd want that freedom, it kind of just, kind of messes with you a little bit. But yeah, definitely adapting, not being on edge all the time. When you're for a year straight being a gunner, constantly having to watch your back, watch other guys' backs, being in that turret and just thinking that you got to be looking for anyone that's trying to kill you or any of your guys. And then coming back, you're still on edge, and you're just constantly looking around, thinking about, your environment around you, looking at different people driving, being in large crowds. I couldn't stand being in large crowds when I got back. Just made me felt really uneasy, and I guess I was kind of a little paranoid too coming back. But I think it took probably about a year or so, and things kind of started to get a little more calmed down, and was able to kind of adjust back into that civilian life.
Have you had any contact with any fellow veterans over the years?
Yeah, actually I do. I'm very active with other veterans. So I'm currently now a financial advisor, own my own business, and I work with a lot of veterans, have a lot of contact with them. Also still part of the National Guard Association. So I still do events with them actually yearly and try to stay in touch and help veterans out in their finance parts of their life. so definitely stayed very connected to them, and then also just even meeting veterans in everyday life, like at the gym or really anywhere. I've really been able to connect with veterans, and it's cool because you always have that um, connection with each other. So it seems like I always clicked really well when I meet a veteran, and usually it ends up being in a friendship, staying in contact, and yeah, just end up getting along really, really well. So that's kind of been a cool experience with being a veteran, is be able to have those fellow veterans to connect with and relate with, and then when there is struggles in life, you can reach out to those veterans because they know what you've experienced, been through similar situations. So you can really connect with them on that. So yeah.
How do you think your experiences affected your overall life?
Yeah, so my experiences for overseas definitely affected my leadership abilities. I would definitely say my motivation as well. Um, and also, just be able to handle tough situations. I think now, after being adjusted back to civilian life, which took a little while, but I think I'm definitely more well equipped to be able to handle situations that are intense or high stress. Just having to deal with that overseas, I guess just kind of carried over into my civilian life, where I'm able to try to react to situations that are stressful a lot better. As far as like leadership too, I was kind of in a leadership role, and also had to help lead in our convoy security team. So that's kind of helped me in my civilian career, as far as being able to lead in my business and how I relate with others. And then also I'll say too, as far as like building relationships and knowing how important it is to have good relationships when you're in intense, under pressure situations. So I guess it's kind of helped me realize how important it is to have good relationships, whether it be in your personal life or business life, and just having those be a good foundation.